Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of It's Just Not Your Day podcast with myself, Drayton, and Temple.
Hello. How you doing, man?
So,
It's been a long time.
yeah, it's been a really long time. Apologies for not releasing anything quicker or sooner than this, but there's a lot of stuff going on now, so I think we should dive straight into talking about it. Some of you would have noticed that we had a stream podcast ripped straight off Temple's stream from the Drops event that happened quite recently, and where we broke down the developer Q&A feedback that came from the booming players asking or getting some questions into the developers' hands. And we went through that with Madchin. It was a really good one to not only listen to, but it's actually one of the first ones where you can actually go and watch. Temple even got a couple of good Reaper plays, not many, but one or two.
One or two. I think we have to rename that episode to the Aircon episode, though. So
Yes. It's more of a watching one than ASMR. In addition to that, we have the dates and some huge moves in terms of what's happening on the MyGame servers. So we have the servers merging on Europe. So we're getting the Europe super server. And we also have the start date and PTR testing for the latest season. Temple, do you want to go into that briefly?
yeah, definitely. So we have the PTR testing starts as of Tuesday the 5th, midday. So you'll probably have already seen some of that already by the time you listen to this. But then going forwards from that, we have obviously on the 14th of September is when the new season starts. Couple of things to look out for in that season. We've been told there's going to be a new game mode. There's going to be a new event in that season at one point as well. There's the Halloween event that's going to be coming up obviously as well, which will be interesting whether they bring back the old one or whether they make something completely new. That's going to be interesting to find out what happens there. I think we're looking at two. Yeah, the Halloween event's my favorite. Also, the Plague Doctor skin is my favorite skin in the entire game, so I love the Halloween events for that.
So when everyone else gets that, you now don't feel so special.
That is the only downside because they bring that skin out again every Halloween. I was hoping it'd be a one-time only thing because not many people bought it the first time around because it's a more unique skin. It's not very like medieval kind of themed, is it? It kind of is, but isn't. So a lot of people didn't buy it. But we've got two different sets of unit mastery coming out as well. So there's going to be one in end of September, and then there's going to be one in November at some point. They haven't released when yet. So that's going to be interesting to see what units they do mastery on next. Are they going to go down the line of doing cav or range mastery? Me personally, I think they're going to do Rattan mastery next because they did obviously the chivalric ones this time, didn't they? So it's going to be interesting to see what they go for with the next one. What's your bets? What do you think they're going to bring out for that?
I think Rattan is a strong choice. I think the ranged options will be difficult to manage. And as we mentioned with Madchin, they want to avoid the arrow rain whole game style. So it'll be interesting. We'll see. I'm willing to be surprised.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll definitely see some surprises there. Obviously, we've got the 3 new units next season as well. So we've got the Schutzdieners, I believe they're called, which is the 3-star range, so the blue range unit. We've got the Kriegsbruders, which are the tier 4, the purple cav, which is going to be the first sword and shield cav in the game. So that's going to be interesting to see how strong they are, because the way they're sort of teasing it is like they're going to be good in sort of long brawl fights, which is going to be interesting. So they must have block in some way. So a cav unit with block could add some very interesting mechanics into the game. And obviously we've got the Zweihanders then as the 5-star, so the gold unit, which again supposedly can block cavalry. So I think it's kind of like Camels-esque, where it like actually physically stops them from going through. So that could definitely change the meta a lot as well. So it's definitely been an exciting season, and the theme overall being the Teutonic Knights is something that a lot of people are excited for. So I'm definitely interested to see what's going to happen with this next season now. Will it bring back some more players again and increase that player base even more? And then, like you said, there's also the merge as well, which is going to bring a lot of player base back to the game, I think. So definitely some exciting stuff.
Exciting stuff to go on.
Yeah, next up as well, we've got the tournament at the moment, the Nations Cup. So that final is going to be on Wednesday the 6th. I believe it's 1900 to 2100 CEST, and that's on the official My Games channel. So we're going to get actual broadcasts on there, which should bring a lot more viewers in as well, which is going to be fantastic. I'm going to be casting that with Mark, so it's going to be very exciting to see what happens with that, because this final, Germany versus Turkey, is going to be, I think it's going to be quite close. I think it might even go all the way to the field battle, to be honest with you.
And who's in the small final?
The small final is Romania versus Benelux. No, Benelux, yeah. So they've obviously had their comeback with France dropping out. So could be exciting if they manage to take third spot from Romania. That could be a very exciting comeback for that Benelux team, who thought they were out and then all of a sudden come third. So definitely exciting series to watch.
Good luck to all teams taking part in that.
Definitely.
And now let's talk about this episode. So this episode was recorded a while ago, probably 3 or 4 weeks, and it's just taken a while to get to this stage. And it's a fantastic discussion with SuperKitowiec, and he is incredibly insightful into the kind of minor and micro interactions that troops have, as well as the interactions that heroes have from their armor scaling and how to correctly assign your stats. It's a really good talk, and I'm now going to just let him introduce himself.
Okay, hello, I'm SuperKitowiec. I'm making YouTube guides for Conqueror Bay for like, 2 years, over 2 years. I'm playing since season 5, and like the reason why I started making guides is because I found that there is just not enough information in the game. Like you have descriptions which say you nothing. Like this unit is good against heavy armor, but what does it mean, right? So I was trying to just check the numbers. So it was kind of hard in the beginning without custom matches. So I was just doing like pursuits against my other account on different computer to like have the both perspectives. And it kind of worked, but yeah, right now it's much easier.
There's
That's
still
like,
a number of people are still doing it that way as well, using pursuits instead of custom battles.
Yeah, I mean, the game historically has had a lot of hidden numbers, hasn't it? Like, we've had to work out a lot of stats from the start of the game and what they actually mean. I remember, like, one of the biggest ones early on was, like, how does crit work? Because that was something that took people a while to figure out, like, what did the crit numbers actually mean? Like, the critical numbers. Like, was it that you dealt more critical damage? Was it that just you had a higher chance? Because all it said was crit, and that was it. So I remember early on in the game, that took a long time for people to figure out exactly how it worked. And people had, like, Excel sheets of what's the best number of defense you have to go up to before it gets to a certain point, things like that. So there's always been a lot of hidden stats, shall we say.
Okay, so we've got all these hidden stats that probably are pre your time starting. So if you only started in season 5, there's going to be a load of history that's not already there. But what we'd love your opinion on is, what do we think a veteran player is? And this is going to be continuing on from our previous discussions in previous episodes. And what kind of characteristics would you expect from a veteran player in terms of this kind of like hidden knowledge, as in what is the best stat on a certain weapon, what skills are able to do certain things, and what interactions kind of don't exist in the text but do exist in the game? What do you think?
Okay, I think about weapons it's not really about knowing the skills, but like knowing, because someone can be a veteran and play only one weapon, right? So it's enough to just know what kind of CC abilities or CC recovery enemies have. So when you actually fight them, it's not like, oh, I'm stun locked all the time, the game is bad because I mean, if you don't waste your CC recovery, then you are not stun locked ever. So that's like one thing. Another thing would be, I guess, knowing how to find which units are good right now, like the sources. Or maybe you can just test it yourself, because I don't expect people to, like, everybody testing everything, but at least you should know who to ask, right? To pick the right units and the right builds. So I think that's like the starting point. And just knowing how to find the knowledge to be up to date with everything.
Yeah, and I think for me, there's two big sides to that. I think the main side is content creators like yourself that make these videos, put all this effort in to find this stuff out. And the second one for me would be houses. Like, if you are in a house, someone will have either already played the unit as soon as the patches come through, because people play at different times of the day. So either you have someone that's already played it and can tell you what's good, or you'll have people that will know the content creators that will already checked your videos as soon as they come out. So you get that knowledge from just being in that community as a house. And it's a theme that we've had throughout this whole season, is for new players, getting into a house is one of the best things you can do to learn this game. because you will have such a huge network of support there. Some houses aren't as supportive as others. Obviously, that's always going to happen. But finding a good house to be in that can give you that information, can support your growth, will massively impact how you get into this game.
Yeah, the houses side is such an interesting one. I've got community ties with new player houses on EU2, as well as playing in hardcore houses on EU1. And the way in which even veterans are asking, how do I do this? How do I spec a certain unit? Everyone is trying to figure it out. And if the community is all like working together and they're all kind of like coming to the same conclusions, sharing them around, you end up with establishing almost that meta that where we sit. And the content creators as well are a really unique way of getting information into that. So we've got SuperKitowiec one. Apologies. Evo. Evo is a great example of putting out a guide that is, in his words, 2 weeks late yet somehow still working. And his comment section say you're playing it wrong, and yet he's still got a decent number of kills and he's done a decent performance in a siege. Plumtion's churning out content where he's looking at the seasonal units right now. Coffeefield Gaming, just to mention a few, are doing these little reviews where they're trying to see how best to work things. And everyone's flavor is different. Everyone does things slightly differently as well. And it kind of ties us into how the units don't need to be played optimally to be effective. But it's where that information comes from. So we've got content creators giving certain types of information that we're then finding members of the community saying, oh, I don't quite agree with that. I do it a slightly different way. And then these houses feeding information to their new players saying, you need to use Imperial Pikes in a specific formation, otherwise you're not using them properly. And it's really difficult to kind of establish what is good information and how do we get good information to everyone.
Okay, so I wanted to add more about this, like using units properly, because as you mentioned, because when I started, I was also watching Evo's guides, right, on units to find out what is good and things like that. And I, like, from my perspective, like what I try to do is go very deep into like mechanics, and I'm quite sure that like to new players it's not very useful because it's just too detailed. It's like, you cannot wrap around. Like you have to focus on playing properly, and it doesn't matter if you deal slightly more damage if you use other veterancy, if you just feed your unit in 1v10, right? So I think that it's more like the focus on just saying, like to keep in mind that it's rarely important how you build the unit, like honestly, because there is like right now, I don't think there is like unit which you can break if you build it wrongly. Like maybe the old ones which have like old veterans, which is very like just useless, right? And I mean Unity with some healing outside thieves, and so that's useless. But the new units, they work whatever, however you build them, and you can min-max it, but it won't really make a difference if you play it wrong. Like if your game sense is bad, it's mostly about game sense. And
yeah,
so
definitely.
yeah,
I was just going to jump on one of the things you said there. So it's like the old units have a big difference, but then even still, you see it with that. So one big example for me was Palace Guards. Like everybody would always build them the one way, but you'd still always see the opposite line with like the shield formation. You'd still see people building it that way, and it still works, but it's just not as good, if that makes sense. Like, but you'd still see people building it, even though like everyone that I knew to build it the other way, but you'd still see people building it the arguably wrong way. But like you said, it still has very little impact anyway on these units. And something I was just thinking of then is, why do we even have these veterancy lines with multiple lines? Like, what is the purpose of them, right? Because, like you said, a lot of the time, it doesn't matter which line you build, the units can do the same thing. So why is it even a feature in the game? Could they not just remove the veterancy lines and just have a single veterancy? Like, you look at all the mercenary units, they have one single veterancy line. Is that a way the game could go instead?
Yeah, I think that like I wouldn't agree that they work the same, because on some of the newer units they actually work differently. I think the assassins are a very good example, because they have 3 lines which like put them in like at least 2 of them, because one is useless, but 2 of them put them in completely different play styles, because one is go in and spam damage and just kill enemies, and one is hit and run. And it's really makes a difference if you mismatch how you build them with how you play them. But like other things, I mean, there is like, for example, Reapers, which you can go middle line, top line, bottom line. Like, I mean, it in theory it makes the difference in the stats, right? You will deal more damage or take less damage, but like in the end, you go in there is 5 enemy players, and you go in charge once, and you either live or die. And it's not like if you use different veterancy, you would survive, or it's not. You like the effect is the same. So that's why I'm. Yeah, I think it's important to say it's not worth like sweating about the builds, because it makes a difference in like 1v1 or 1v2 maybe, but if you like go with the team, it doesn't make a difference because it's just too much.
For that casual siege play, I would definitely agree with that. But I would say that when it comes more to sort of like what I consider the top level, so let's say we're looking at ranked, we're looking at territory wars, we're looking at tournaments on the sort of the more high competitive level, you will notice those differences then. But definitely for the average casual player, play what you want. You know, if you're playing sieges, play what you want, play what you're having fun with. Like, I can sit there all day and argue with people. I was even having a conversation today in the English official Discord saying, stop recommending range to new players, because they're not going to have fun with that once they get into the actual games. Yes, you can play it and you can have fun with it if you're just chilling out and you know what you're doing, but people need to be playing melees and learning how to play the game at that level, because that's what you will be playing when you get to the more competitive side. But if you're just playing the game to have fun, chilling in sieges, play whatever you want, you know. But looking at it, because I'm still going on to that point I said before about the vet lines, but it's like, from a balance point of view, wouldn't it make more sense they just got rid of vet lines, just made the unit how they want to make it, don't have these vet lines, and then they can balance things right? Because there have been cases in the past where they've like buffed or nerfed a unit, and then suddenly the opposite vet line is actually better, and then that suddenly becomes stronger because of that. And it hasn't happened much. I think it was only once or twice it's happened. I think it may have been Fire Lancers early on where they did it with, where it's like when they changed it, actually the other vet line was so much better. But surely if they just got rid of vet lines, they could balance the game a lot easier, surely.
Potentially, because it essentially, if you take your 2 veterancy lines per unit, you've doubled the amount of versatility a unit can offer. But we've also seen complications with that, where some of these original units, which could only go to level 18 before they got their like final unlock on a tree, we're now going to 24 in some cases. And certain units like the Rattan Marksman, you now have the ability, or they had to put in extra nodes to unlock, which have tipped that unit from being an okay unit killer as well as a baiting unit to now if you don't kill this, it's going to kill you kind of unit.
If you have a doctrine for it as well, yeah.
Well as you have doctrines. Yeah. But we can talk about doctrines even later. Personally, I think veterancy is a really nice way to increase versatility. It's like saying, I'm not going to shoehorn you into building a unit a specific way just because it exists. I want it to be able to match playstyle. And my favorite previous example that isn't as valid anymore now the Mastery's come out was Imperial Pikes, where some people love to go top line because it did more damage on the advance, and other people like to go bottom line because it meant that the unit survived a bit longer. And that kind of different... we'll use Falconettis as another example, where top line versus bottom line. Top line is kind of considered the ranged bombardment, where you've got fewer units, they deal slightly higher damage but with more accuracy, as opposed to the bottom line, which is often called shotgun Falconetti, where you play just behind the front line and try to obliterate everything in front of you.
The way it
but
should
you
be
know,
played.
yeah, the way it very much could be played and is encouraged. But they're very, very different playstyles. And where if you were to just force someone to play one of those lines, you then limit who can play what.
No, I agree with that. It does give more versatility, so I would agree with that.
I also would want to say that, at least for me, if there was, imagine that you have to level up your unit to like 24 levels, and only thing that changed is passive stats, which it would just be meaningless. Like at least I need some kind of like carrot which makes me want to level them up to get excited about like unlocking stuff.
Oh,
So I
definitely. It
think
does give you
in
that
that
grind
way,
ability.
yeah, it's a good way. And also, but I think the main problem is that like a lot of nodes are just meaningless, especially if you have two lines, but some of nodes you get either way, regardless of which line you go. So what's the point of them, right? You could have them from the beginning. So I mean, if there was like less nodes and only the ones which are meaningful would be less, then you can focus on making a choice, right? And right now there's just too many and hard to make a choice, and that's how I feel.
Yeah, and alongside that, there was certainly many seasons ago, there was kind of a unwritten rule, which is until you got your winged hussars to the level where they had an unstoppable charge, don't bring them, because they're just going to get killed and they're a waste of time. And it's kind of that unsatisfying up until a point, and then almost you've gone off a cliff where you've gone from being unsatisfying to being broken. And people then rush towards getting it to that broken stage and don't learn how to play the unit to the point where you've almost mastered it at a weaker state. So then when you unlock that stronger one, you're then able to be incredibly effective. And when we think about sieges, the impact a successful and well-aimed hussar charge can have has the potential to be massive. But we're seeing that less and less as well with the changing to leadership, where leadership, the gold units are getting cheaper and cheaper, the purple units are getting stronger and stronger, and we're now seeing the meta being shifted away. I remember Plumshin mentioning this weeks ago, that you used to see a gold unit and be like, wow, okay, someone has really invested into playing this siege with one of these units. Do we focus them down? What do we do? Do we just run away? And now everyone's got gold. Everyone's got double gold and a purple in some cases, because leadership values are now so much lower. What do we think about that?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you talk about leadership, it's a big difference. I mean, you even look at the changes they made. Was it the start of this season when they lowered all of the golden units' cost basically from all the ones that weren't being played, and you look at some units that had like 340 leadership, and now you look at the new season unit this season. What, it's 295 because it has minus 10 leadership from the start. And so I think it's 305 without it, isn't it? Because it has minus 10% for the season. But even still, 305 for a new golden unit seems really low to me. No, sorry, it's 295, isn't it? Because it's 285 right now. So it's only 295 leadership, which is insane. When you look at for example, Falcos, they used to be 340 leadership, and they're now 320 after they changed it. But like, it's just such a massive difference, which is now that's pushing the game more and more to either you don't need the leadership on your equipment, or now it's trying to push it more to sort of triple golden in some cases on booming servers, obviously. But over here, it's like you can go double golden and a blue a lot of the time. You can go definitely you can go golden double purple. I'm pretty sure with 795 before you can go on a musher and then 2 cheap goldens. So like the new season tier 5 and I think like monastics or hashashins, I think. So you can go double golden and a purple, which is insane when you think about it compared to previous seasons.
No, I think that what you mentioned about like, because the leadership on armor is for me is a like problem with the game, because it makes all other stats like not important on the armor. Like, so I think if they intend to somehow lower leadership to maybe and make some kind of switch out of like focus of leadership on armor, that would be a good change for the game. Because you would like you roll your armor 100 times because all you want is leadership. You don't care that you got legendary. If you get legendary without leadership, you just get tilted, and I don't think that's how it should look like, right? And another thing is that you also mentioned that purples are very strong right now. Like, personally, I don't play any golds. I use only 3 purple units all the time, because I'm looking at my goals and it's like, I mean, why would I use them? I mean, I don't want to play Anyedu, so there is no gold units which is worth using for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's down to personal opinion, but there are some golds that can be useful at the moment. So just for example, this current season's tier 5 is very good.
Yeah,
and
it's
Madaus
nice.
are good as well. So, but it depends on your playstyle. If you're not into that playstyle, then yeah, there isn't a massive variety of gold units. Because, well, like I said at the start, the variety really is the Orochi Samurais, Madaus, Yan Yadao, or if you want to play range, Shenji, Flames. That's kind of it for golds. You can make Shield Maidens work in some scenarios. You can make Hashashins work in some scenarios. I think, but from me talking from the competitive side, that's really the only gold you see is Orochis, Yan Yadaos, and Madaus. Pretty much what you see.
I think we can talk a bit about how the meta numbers and meta units are getting established, and we mentioned how you get the slowly but surely creep as the community learns what's strong. This season, along with previous seasons, we've had the ranked scene be particularly plagued by low versatility and low adaptability in the units, where last season was known as 30 players all playing Crescent Monks, Yan Yadao, and Fortebraccio. And if you weren't playing that, you were considered to be trolling or not trying. So this season, my understanding is it's a bit more versatile, but that establishment of a meta and how it just stagnates also then relates into the weapons, where this year this season we're continuing to see Maul dominate, but we're seeing Nadachi getting a bit more play, particularly in sieges as well as, well, not so much in territory war. But how is the game kind of adapting to these changes in the units, and how leadership has now it was always was important, but now it's even more important, so you can get these thresholds to get these top tier units. How do we think that's affecting the average player experience?
I mean, when you talk about leadership, so historically it was 775. That was the lowest you wanted, right? Because 775 you could get a good setup with. That was when you can get like your sort of top level setup with 775. Now with how cheap the units are, you probably need like 740, maybe even that. Probably not even needed with the Onimusha and like Orochis and things like that to play these meta units. But I would say this season has been probably the one season that's had the most meta changes during it, just because there's been a lot of changes this season, and just the game in general has a lot of changes this season, right? So we had the epic weapon armor sets. I can't think of my words now. Epic weapon armor sets that came in, the schematics. The big changes to those changed everything. We're having different masteries every couple of weeks now for the units, which is changing stuff as and when that comes out. So you look at the start of this season, what was being played then we had the Imp Shields came out with the mastery. They just then became, I mean, they were kind of meta anyway, but they became even more meta now. Then you've now recently had like sort of Javs and Imp Pikes that have had the mastery. Now they are playable as well. And especially the Imp Pikes, that was probably one of the unitary units that was played the least out of anything. Like if you look at tier 4 units from the unit tree, that's probably the least played one for the last like 3 or 4 seasons at least. Because Halberd Sergeants always had a use because they're low leadership. Javs, people always like playing those. Talking about melees here, obviously. Palace Guards had their phase where they were strong, but they're pretty weak, but they were still used more than Imp Pikes. Now they're a meta unit. You see them all the time now. Especially in like the top rank that I was playing over the weekend. Like you will see Imp Pikes everywhere because they actually can do something now.
Yeah, I can't talk about new masteries sadly because I didn't check them out yet. So I didn't see how effective they are. But from what I saw, and I'm not playing top tier ranks, I'm playing regular ranks, let's say, is that I think that the fact that they are changing units, there are big changes so often, it makes it very varied. Like it's only the fact of changes. I wouldn't say that is. Maybe I'm not sure if it's because units got very good, but if you have big changes like with interesting new mechanics and not just like 100 more damage, people just try them out, so they keep playing, and you suddenly play the game and everybody is using different unit, right? Like
yeah,
after
you see that with this new one. So just to update you on it, like the Imp Pikes have another ability now, and you can reset their cooldown of their advance as part of it. And I believe it was the Imperial Jabs were the ones that got buffed this time. They now have a new ability where they can throw their shields, so you can snipe heroes from within shields, for example, with that ability. So it massively changes the units and makes them a lot more interesting to play, because obviously in Pikes it was just a advance one and done. Like Drayton mentioned, there was the argument before of, do you advance once but be it stronger, or do you try and get multiple advances off? That was their split line. But most of the time, as far as I'm aware, most people go top line because you get one stronger advance, then normally the unit's dead anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can get multiple advances off. They can kill heroes now because they have higher damage. You can reset their cooldown. Like they're such a different unit, but still with that core of their advance there. So it's really good. I like the changes personally. I haven't played them yet myself because I didn't have enough tokens to use it yet. But I've seen a lot of them played, and they look a lot more fun to play. But they still keep that core dynamic of what made them what they are.
I think that the core thing is adding things to do. Like imagine if you played in Pikes, you had this advance with long cooldown, and if you missed, then yeah, that's it, right? And now you have another skill, right? Same with jabs, you get another skill, so you have like some more. There is more game to them, right? It's not so simple. I guess even with Jav Sergeants, which got some stacking damage, so you can play around it. You want to stack up your Javs, right? Yeah. So all that is good. And I also wanted to talk about like how the units get to the being meta, right? Because I think it's kind of important, because you mentioned some numbers before, but like the theme I see is that it doesn't matter what numbers unit have. It only matters if it's easy to use. Because I think it's like the main thing is that if you don't know, you can pick it up quickly. So that's good. But also like what I like to mention is that many people play with not the best PCs. And you cannot micro your unit during the fight because it's not possible, because you don't see anything. So it has to be like click and do stuff.
Shield Maidens are a big example of that, right? When they were out,
Yeah.
you could play them, but if you were a top level player and you had a good PC, you could micromanage so many different abilities on them to make them so much stronger.
Mm-hmm. So we spoke about this with Amir, and Amir's kind of take on it was if the unit or the class is forgiving, so you can make mistakes and not get completely punished for it, then that is what makes it better, which is what made Crescent Monk so strong, because they had CC immunity, as well as they just hit everything around them, so you didn't even need to aim them, or you micro them a little bit, but were very easy. And we see that with Yanya Dao at the moment. What kind of changes? I'm going to now pretty much focus this on Yanya Dao, but we can bring in other units as well. We've got 2 or 3 units that are extremely strong in the meta right now. And one of those being Yanya Dao, another being Imperial Spearguard. They very much feel quite oppressive by how much they're used and how much they're able to do. But in terms of a problem, I don't feel that Imperial Spearguard are a problem, but I do feel like Yanya Dao are a problem. When they are best in slot, they deal a ton of damage, and they feel that there's very little counterplay, as well as being quite forgiving. Are there any changes that we would suggest as players that have now played 100 odd hours facing into Yanya Dao and using them, that would bring that unit in line, would still give them a role, but not make them as oppressively strong as they currently are?
I think the big thing you said there, right, is like counter ability. Like the imp shields can be very strong, but they have complete hard counters. Like they have just insane hard counters. You look at any kind of range, Shenji's going to do a lot of work into them. They're not as fast, but then you've got Flames, you've got Cocos, and you've got Cav that will just kill them as well. But with the Yanya Daos, there isn't really a hard counter. There are counters now that are sort of, you can play 40s, you can wipe them if people are bad with them, but someone who is good with the Yanya Dao, because of their ability where they charge forwards, it seems to get them behind the 40s damage point before the 40s can register their attack a lot of the time. So it's like they will charge through, not take any damage from the 40s, and then clear them because now they're on top of them. That's what seems to be the issue. That's, from what I can see, that's the issue. There is a little trick where you can like brace the 40 as the cab's getting to you, and it seems to kind of work around that. But that's a very skill-based, like you have to perfectly time your brace to be able to do it, whereas the Yanya Dao guy can just walk through, press 1, and just wipe everything, basically. And there's no just completely hard counter to that unit. That's what makes it so oppressive. But then having said that, it is a tier 5 going into a tier 4. Should it be able to be wiped by that? Should we actually be relying on a tier 5 anti-cav instead, which we have Medaos? They're not really the best, though. Should they bring out a new tier 5 next season, for example, that is just a pure anti-cav that can counter these cavs? Because then you have the rock, paper, scissors balance, right?
I
That's
think
my
that,
thoughts on it.
yeah, I think that problem with like saying that you should just bring anti-cav against cav is that you have anti-cav in one place and cav can go wherever it wants because it's faster. So it shouldn't be 1-to-1 because like anti-cav is like static defenses, right? So they have to be a bit better, like and not to trade.
But then isn't that the balance for though? Doesn't that add more balance to it? So it's like, let's look at the game, for example. Majority of the game, you're fighting in very small, close quarters combat in castles, basically. That's the core of the game, right? Yes, there are field battles, there are, interceptions, all that kind of stuff. But Cav should be king on that because of the style of the map. That's my thoughts on it anyway. Is the other option that they look at maybe Rattan Rangers as a unit pretty weak? Should they then turn that into more of an anti-Cav unit so it does extra damage to Cav? So then you could have a fast move, or maybe bring out another unit instead that does something like that. So it's like a fast-moving Cav unit that's designed to counter Cav. Is that an option? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I think that like ranged cav should work like that. You even have doctrines for reduce damage against infantry and increase against cav, but it's useless because you don't have anything to put it at, right? So it would be nice to have like units which actually work, because like I experimented with using ranged cav against cav, but problem most of the time is that you cannot shoot when you are like have enemies behind you, so you have to kinda point at them, but then they can catch you because you are too slow to run away.
Yeah.
So,
and they don't really do enough damage to kill the cav a lot of the time.
Yeah,
because
that's
tier 5
another.
cav are so tanky. Because I've done it as well. I've played like Rattan Rangers on Wallfort, for example, on the defense, and tried to mess around with them on there and see if I can make any use out of them. But they're so squishy, they get one shot by any range hero anyway, or jabs, or any range that's being played. And their range is so low, you have to walk right in front of the enemy, and then a hero's going to jump in you. And then their damage is just so low, you'll maybe kill 15, 20 units with them before they die.
Yeah, but going back to Yaniedu, I think that for me there are two issues with them. Like first one, having CC immunity, so you have no counter. But another one, even let's say they keep the CC immunity, like any other cav, when you charge them in, you want to have them grouped so they actually deal damage, and and they end up stacked up, so you can kill them, like all of them at once. And Yaniedu like teleport all around the place, and you can hit maybe two of them at once.
And because it's partly because their melee is a big, massive sweep, isn't it? Which is unlike any other cav that we have. Any other cav, like you said, you want to stack them up to get them close so that they will hit as many units, but also hit them together so you can one-shot them. Whereas Yanmeidao can just go spread out like a fan, hit everything with their swing, and still deal a lot of damage. But we've mentioned many times before on this podcast how unhealthy for the game we feel CC immunity is in general, but they seem to keep adding it onto a lot of things.
I would add the mostly the lengthy CC immunity is because I mean some units should have some kind of CC immunity. So for example, like you have one skill with long cooldown and you use it and you get interrupted and that's it, right? That shouldn't happen. You should be able to use it, right? But it should be like 0.5 second so that you can do the animation and not like 10 seconds during the charge up.
I mean, one unit that we can talk about as well is obviously Imp Shields. When they got their change, was it last season? They added CC immunity to them. Once they hit 3 attacks, isn't it? They gain CC immunity, something like that. I can't remember the exact details off the top of my head. But for me, that unit needs it because that is a shield unit. It's not a damage dealing unit. That CC immunity isn't going to allow it just to walk through 100 units and kill them all, right? It's just to allow it to frontline better, which is its sole job.
But that CC immunity only lasts while its block is up. So a poleaxe comes in, weapon dances, and that CC immunity is gone almost instantly. So has a hard counter.
Exactly.
So I'm going to add a third point, which is why I think Yanyeidao is so unhealthy. So CC immunity is one. Number 2 is they hit everything and they disperse, and there's almost no way to funnel them into a single place to kill them. The third is how short their cooldowns are, particularly the cooldown on the one ability. If you have fully charged the thing and then unleashed the ability, you can then do a quick charge and go again almost instantly. So they've got very short cooldowns, which again starts the CC immunity, and then they're able to just pass through units. So we've got three areas that I think you can potentially hit with a nerf. Which do we honestly think of that? And Temple, just want to make your point.
Yeah, I was going to say, just one of the biggest changes you can do is just add like a 10-second cooldown to their one. And then they can do one big sweep, and then you've either got to run away with them, or they're sat in a melee brawl, not being able to use any abilities for 10 seconds. That would make them a lot healthier. Would it solve the issue completely? Probably not, but it would make them a lot healthier and a lot more counterable. Because then you can start doing things like baiting their charge out. Then people can't, if they charge up too early and don't go in and they try and run away, then they've got to wait like an extra 15 seconds before they come back in again. So you can bait out somebody's charge, then try and kill the cav while it's trying to wait for its one to come on cooldown. Adds a lot more counterability to it that way. That is probably the quickest and easiest way they can bring more balance to that unit. The other option, obviously, we've got is the CC immunity. I don't see them taking that away, because even if they take away the doctrine, it's still built into their kit, because they charge forwards whilst they slash, which is CC immune while they do that. So there's nothing you can really do about that anyway. It's not really CC immune, but because it has that animation, it's kind of CC immune. It's like a soft CC immunity. The other one is their ability. Maybe you do it so they can't hit as many units with one strike. Lower the number of units they can hit with each strike, maybe. That's a possible option. But I just think the biggest one is just add a cooldown to their one.
Kitowiec, do you agree?
Yeah, I think the cooldown is very good, because like they have CC immunity only when they use the skill, right? So if they would have to wait 10 or 15 seconds after the hit, then you could like CC and kill them in these 15 seconds. So that would be more like big burst, okay, but then you die because you are stuck in enemies.
Yeah, especially if you compare it to any other cav as well, right? Look at Hussars, look at Monastics and things like that. Monastics, obviously, they have their charge reduced when they get interrupted, but you can still interrupt their charge and try and kill them. Hussars is a one-and-done kind of charge unit. If you fail your charge, you're probably going to lose all the unit. Yanya Dao at the moment, you can fail your charge and still then just run them away for free and kill something else, or just charge them up again while you're inside there and just kill everything anyway. There's very little punishment on that unit.
So we've seen changes to overpowered meta units, such as the Crescent Monks had, a 6% damage reduction on this epicycle, which when people started to actually think about, it was like, no, they are overkilling the people they're hitting by more than 6%. 6% isn't actually any nerf at all on the grand scheme of things. But what did nerf them really hard was their leadership going up. So they went from being 235 to 250, which meant they didn't fit in, even with these top-level players with 795, even 800 leadership. They're now struggling to fit them into a double purple gold setup. So they also have done little changes to Yanya Dao, such as they've reduced the slashing damage they did. Again, they're overkilling the units they're hitting. What does a reduction in damage do? Particularly when the meta at the moment is not just one Yanya Dao. The meta is 2, 3, or even 5 of the damn things running over your units. So is a 150 slashing damage nerf going to actually do anything to that? No, it's not. And we again saw that with their defensive reduction, where they reduced their defenses by a number of points. If you're CC immune, you're not dying. So having a reduction in your defenses didn't affect it. So that it's almost like the nerfs they're trying to implement are not understood. Like they're not coming from I play this game a lot point of view, and therefore the changes I would make are XYZ. They are, we think it's obviously a nerf, but how much of a nerf is it? I don't think they're really the developers, and the changes they're making are not coming from players with experience. That's for sure.
I feel like for the monks, I think there was also the reduction of the block, and and the block break, I guess. But because for the monks, like for me personally, I always hated fighting them because of their block, and you just couldn't get through that, and you couldn't deal damage to them, right? So like for me, like reducing their blocks, I actually can break it and like deal damage. It's like something impactful which I can see in the game, right? And like like the flat number reductions, you cannot really feel it, I would say. So it would be nice to get something which you like affects the gameplay more, not just the numbers that so that's not like, oh, he charged into my unit and now they are at half HP and not 1/3 of HP. Like, yeah, I wouldn't even notice that. But if they did something to their cooldown that, you know, they don't charge up instantly, then I would notice that because I can suddenly kill them. So I think that they are missing like the changes nerfs which actually impact the gameplay, and they very like tweaking numbers, I feel like, but it's yeah.
I do think that they're definitely in a healthier place than they were. You don't see as much. It's not like you see 50 in a game now, you see maybe 5 or 6, but they are still, I think, not in a healthy place as a unit.
So what can we do as people that are playing the game a lot do to help make those changes? Like, is there, I know we mentioned this with Ghost, but I'm not sure it made it into the final podcast, which is, can we have a select group of players that are, in particularly on the My Game server, whose brains are picked as to what is actually happening and what is causing problems, what changes need to be made, instead of having a few individual voices of questionable repute actually getting this information to the ears of the developers and it being acted upon in a way that doesn't actually make the game any better than it currently is. What do we suggest? And what are the current ways of getting feedback to the developers? Because I understand that there's a communication line through the community managers, but how effective do we think it is? And what changes do we actually think are being made as a result of feedback that's being provided?
I mean, at the moment, the features we have, right, are we can put feedback on the official My Games Discord, right? That's basically the only feedback area we have. There is a channel on the official Conqueror's Blade My Games Discord where you can put in feedback suggestions, and they will look at them and they will feed them back to Booming. The question is, does that actually get to anyone in Booming that will do anything about it? We don't know. We don't know what happens with it once it gets sent off. And this has always been a sort of a comment from the community, I would say, historically, because it's the same when we used to have Blunt before, Bluntcast, when he used to be one of the CMs, and he would say, yeah, we've sent that off to Booming, and then we would hear nothing of it after that. And that's kind of the comment, is that we see that quite a lot. And I think it's a systemic issue with the game, just how it's done with the publishers, is that they don't have any control over it. And a lot of people always go, oh, you CMs aren't doing it, you mods aren't doing it. They don't realize that they don't actually have any power. I think they have some sway, but I think it's very little in the grand scheme of things. So they can send all the feedback they want. Whether it gets listened to, though, by Booming is another thing. And I think that's where maybe something can be done, is setting up. I mean, I think ultimately what we would want is a channel where it's people from Booming, like Booming staff themselves, Booming players, and My Game players and My Game staff in a channel that can say, okay, this week, what are the biggest issues you have right now with units? And have a discussion. It doesn't have to be weekly. It could be once a month. There's a call where they sit in there and say, what are the biggest issues right now with the game that you see from a unit balance wise? And then we can have people in there discussing it actually with Booming, because we can set up all the calls we want with My Games, right? And don't get me wrong, some of them are doing some great work, but if they don't get listened to, if they send it off and nothing happens, then there's no point in doing it, is there?
No, there's not. But there's also so many changes that are happening, and you have to question whether or not they are being made with an in-game knowledge in mind. So let's talk about Mastery. Mastery is a fantastic example where we're seeing multiple units all the time getting changed, and we can see that some Mastery is immediately getting overlooked. Like, that's an investment I don't want to make right now. I'd rather invest in other places. And we see, let's take Imperial Spearguard, not to harp on about them too much, but they are meant to be your shield wall. And guess what? The changes have made them a fantastic shield wall. So that's a very, very positive change. I really, really enjoy that. However, there's other ones like Halberdier Sergeants, which very much, or the game developer's interpretation of them, is they are a charging pike. They are the prefecture pikemen of a purple tier that can then brace afterwards, where almost all their mastery was into charging. And I knew a large number of people that went, I wish I'd never done that. I wish I'd never unlocked their mastery, because fundamentally it's not changed how I play the unit. The unit is still very strong in its F2 holding formation. I don't want to charge them. If I charge them, I then encounter more problems. So
and it was bugged as well, I believe, with the charge where they wouldn't brace properly as intended, so it doesn't help.
there's a number of problems there. I'd love if we have a way of giving feedback that kind of relates us as game players. Like, I'm not saying from a role playing experience, but I see the niche that this unit fills and the changes that I'd make to make it on another level, like a special bit of optimization, or this is my favorite unit, I'm going to invest into it. I'd love to be able to gather those kind of feedbacks and then provide it to the developers so that they're or there's a mutual understanding, because that's always the issue when it comes down to communication, is we get absolutely nothing back from the devs right now. We're very much blind to what changes they want to make, what their vision of the game is, and we are there going, we'd love to see this. Is it going to happen? 12 seasons later, we finally got a Japanese season, for example. Like, we don't know what their roadmap is. We don't know what changes. And when they release these announcements, we then go, okay, that makes sense. And we start to look forward to what's going on. So Mastery particularly, I hold off. I gather all the Mastery pages I can possibly get, and then look at which ones are released, and I'll invest into the one I think is the best day one, and then I'll save again. So I'm doing one every 5. So that's a new master every month.
Well, especially because you consider they're splitting it over tier 4, tier 3, and tier 2 units anyway. You don't really need to do the tier 3 and tier 2. It's nice. Like, I did the Prev guards when they came out, because I know that when it comes to blue meta next season, I can do a lot of farm with them. I have some fun. Why not? But then I didn't do the Halberd Sergeants. I didn't do any of the chavs. So I've done Imp Shields. I've done Prev guards. I did Pike Militia as well, because I thought it'd be fun. And I've done I'm doing Imp Pikes now, but I don't have enough of that anyway. But yeah, it's just, these changes are nice, but people also still need that information. And where do they find that from as to what's good? Like you said with the Halberd Sergeants, there are a lot of people that played them, mastered them instantly that first week, and now we're going, crap, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah, I think because the reason why you feel bad about going for the mastery, for example, for sergeants, it's not. I wouldn't say it's like to blame is that the mastery is for the charge and it's not really working as you would like. And the problem is that you cannot go back from that. And I think that's the one thing that game several lacks. It's very nice of them that they finally gave us the Scrolls of Renewal for Silver, which we were lacking for so long time. And right now I have no issue like changing my veterancy or stats like often. And it just gives you more fun from the game because you can experiment, right? And I mean, they added the reset for the mastery, but it's once per season, right?
Yeah, once per season.
It's really, really not
500,
enough.
Blades,
was it 500 trophies or blades from the season store, isn't it?
Yeah. But one is just not enough, because it's like, I will try something once and then, for the whole season, I'm not going to experiment. And like, it's just stale, right? You then you are forced to just look up what is the best and play the best thing, because you just cannot. Maybe you could make work the Halberd Sergeants, right? Somehow you would figure out a way which you would like to play them, and it would somehow work. But you won't do that because you know that you cannot go back. And I think that's the issue in there. And because like it's let's focus on this like mismatched mastery maybe. I don't have a problem with them like not buffing the side of the unit which is already good, because it would be nice if you could charge the halberdiers and then brace them, and you would have nice charge and then brace. But I mean, just they could make it work properly, right?
Here's another thing, right? Why can't they just say from the start of the season, these are the units that are going to get mastery, right? Because at the moment we're just waiting. They could say, we plan to do this month these units, this month these units. Because my understanding is the goal is that every tree unit will have a mastery yet, but not the tier 5s. That's my understanding of it. That could be wrong, but that's as far as I'm aware. All the tier 1s, yes. It's just the tier 2, 3, and 4. So blues, greens, and purples, they're all going to get unit mastery at some point. But it would be nice if they said, it doesn't have to be that It even doesn't have to be that specific. Just say, in these couple of months, the next couple of months, we're going to try and do these units. If they don't come out, then they don't come out. But just more openness, I think, which is a theme we've had throughout this whole podcast, is more openness of that. I think it was it either in Ghost X or the Amir episode? No, sorry, it was in the Evo episode, wasn't it? When we said that they had at one point, for every patch they did, they would explain why they've done something. And then they've obviously changed who's doing it, or they've changed the way they wanted to do it, so they don't do that anymore. So now we're sort of wondering, like, well, why have they done that? The biggest example for me was the mall changes they did. And they made the changes to all the things that people weren't having issues with. They did it to all the other side of the class. So it was like, it just seems like a lack of clarity is a running theme with this game at the moment.
Yeah,
I think that's something that people would really appreciate.
Another issue is that we have few versions of the game.
Definitely doesn't
and we are the smallest one, so yeah, I think that might be a problem in there too. That for example, if they if you look at the Frontiers Discord, like how or rather Frontiers server, how they play, it's not like they are spamming malls, right? They don't have problem.
I would say that it's getting more popular there now. Historically, no, they didn't. Historically, it was double or triple cav because they had leadership reductions. It was triple cav on everyone, and it was spears and it was pikes. That's what they played. And I have the experience of this from like the tournaments that we did over there, and I have a few contacts over there and watching streams and stuff as well. That was historically what they played. Now with the epic schematic changes, a lot of them have actually been playing more heavy armors. You see it more and more coming through. They do play malls now. Like historically, you maybe saw one in a game. Now you can see 2 or 3 over there. Like it is being played more. It's still not the same as over here. The meta's always been different, but it is more similar now than it used to be. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but still, they have more numbers from that server, right? And if they are basing balance on numbers, then.
But this is a question I don't know if they do balance it on numbers, because this rings really strong in my memory. Is they gave us the stats for the most played weapons a couple of years ago now. We've not seen this kind of data in ages. And that said that the most common classes that were played were Nadachis and short swords. Yet every veteran turned to their left and turned to their right and went, huh? Not in my games. Not as in not in the games that they were playing. And I think that there is parts of the stats which are either being overlooked, they're not aware to look deep enough for, or they're being deliberately ignored, which is addressing the issue of getting a new player in and finding what new players love, transitioning a new player into a veteran, and then finding out what veterans love. And we will see that if you broke it down into those almost 3 demographics of new player, learning player, veteran, you would have very different loadouts for those 3. You'd have very different priorities for those 3. And
100%.
We're kind of recognizing that there's almost like an adjustment now where the middle ground of a learning player is relatively forgotten. They're given a hand-holdy tutorial that gets them up to a certain point. They now hit level 200, and then that's it. Good luck. You're in with the veterans now. And then the veterans have all these events and all these like relatively difficult PvE experiences that allow them to unlock special things to keep it new and interesting. That if you have no idea how to communicate and learn what's actually the way to do these things, you're stuffed. And I'll relate this to the 2 of the PvE events that have happened recently. The first one is the Advanced Deploy and Defend, which was the one where you had that wave where you slowly accrued points, and then the second stage where you spent those points to defend the walls, as it were. And then the other was that very recent event, which looks like it's just stopped, where you were attacking the Japanese fort, where you're slowly working your way through, and you've got to find all the loot boxes as well. And Super, your videos were used extensively throughout both of those for not just new players, probably lacking of new players, but the veterans used it because you figured out ways of doing it. You also communicated it very clearly. And without your content, a significant number of people would have never achieved what they wanted to do. I know I used a screenshot from your video to find where all those loot boxes were, ran around with my friend. We did it over the course of about 2 hours. But if you're a new player playing this alone and you've got no idea, when we first looked at it, we went, we've done this 3 times and we found one box. What the hell's going on? So that kind of requirement for information coming from content creators is clearly there, but there's almost no obvious route to get that information into the hands of players. What do we think about that at the moment?
I think one thing that they could really do better at is supporting the content creators that make this content, right? Why not have on their website an area that just says guides, and it's just a link to the content creators' websites, or it just highlights top videos from like Kitowiec and like Coffee and like Plumshin and Evo, all these players that make these guides, or just have like the Twitch channels of some of these content creators that are useful for new players as well. Like they could really do a lot better at just guiding new players where to get this information, because they're not going to give the information themselves, right? They're not going to write a guide and say, hey, here's this new event, here's where all the boxes are, go have fun. Like that's not a good game design, because they want people to play it and experience it and learn it and find out for themselves. You get more playtime that way. Like speaking with Drake and what Drake just said there, he said obviously you got a video, a picture from your video, and that was actually me that sent it to him. So I'd taken the clip from your video and I'd added a couple of extra spots on from other ones I'd found as well, because there was a few that you had missed, which is because you'd only played a certain number of the games. You're not going to find every box either. Like working together as a community, we can make things better. But there's also a lot of the community that makes things worse. That's always obviously going to always happen. But I think that my games could do a lot better at actually guiding the community to these content creators that can support them, or to houses that can support them, because that's another thing they don't really do either.
I think that because a lot of new games I see, they tend to have some kind of guides which are actually made by content creators. Like you log into the game and you have like literally in the main menu you have links to the guides of some YouTuber, right? But I feel like the issue there is that the like ties between content creators on my games aren't that tight. So I mean, I kind of understand why they wouldn't link a Twitch stream on the in the game, because they don't know what is going on in there. Like they don't.
But at the same time, I see other games where they will have you log in and they just say, "Hey, here's the top person that's currently streaming this game," or the person with the most views currently streaming this game. They'll have things like that. And then there are ways of doing it. Obviously, they have content creator managers. They have people that work on this. They can monitor these streams every now and then. If it's not suitable, they don't highlight that person. I think there's very easy ways of getting around it. I can understand your point, and I think historically they've only really worked closely with Evo, because obviously he helped them with some of the adverts they did early in the game as well. Like he's one of the people they worked the closest with in the history of the games. But that was years ago. If we look at now,
I think that
it's just obviously I've done a few streams with them. That's probably the closest we've got to anything. Is me doing like that stream with Jolt.
Yeah, I kind of could imagine, because like there is for me there are 2 ways how you can go around it. Like the best way, everything should be in game, because the new player, like me personally, I like to go and look for things. Even before I start playing the game, just to be like more comfortable at the start, to like know the basics, right? But a lot of people don't do that. They just go start the game and, it is what it is. What game says you that's the truth, right? So it should be in game, because it would be just like the most accessible. And what I see, like the theme, there is there is not enough connection between systems in the game. Like for example, you should have everything explained. The description should be proper, the numbers should be correct, and if you had all that information, then you can just read it, and yeah.
Okay, I think that brings us to the point which kind of summarizes what I want to talk to you most about. And you're going to give us a quite unique perspective as a content creator. Temple, you're going to give it from the leading houses as well as tournament side, and I'll hopefully give a bit of perspective as a player. And this is the final question, which will be split into 2, which is how do players acquire knowledge? There's a certain responsibility that the community has been given to pass on knowledge, and that responsibility has been given by the lack of information currently coming from the game. When players first start out, how quickly are they able to become effective by what the game currently gives them, which is a series of tutorials which have changed over the evolution of the game? how effective do we think they are? Is the state the game is in currently going to be, is it a beneficial one, or is it going to cause more problems in the future? And then how much burden is actually being put onto the content creators to generate educational content for them? And is there a way that the way the game is currently set up, or way the game is being published, that can bring the right information from the right content creators into the hands of the players? I understand that's quite a lot there. Feel free to break it down however you want. But those are the 2 points. Like, what is the current state of the game for acquiring information? And the second part is, how is the community delivering that in an effective way? And is it even effective? What can be improved?
Yeah, I mean, historically, well, not historically, we mentioned it in previous episodes, right? The game is evolving and evolves at a very quick rate. It is very hard to, well, it's not hard, but it's a lot of work to keep getting up-to-date guides out at a time. And this is something that the pressures we put on content creators. You know, there are a lot of guides out there, but they're outdated within a week, maybe 2 weeks, and they're not really usable again. Or at least they're not maybe at the best, because something small has changed and maybe don't quite play it that way. And I don't think that there is enough reward from my games for content creators to be doing that, because you have to be doing it like almost every week, updating those guides. Like I say, I went through the effort of making whole hero guides on what to skill, how to play, what skills to play, what stats to put. I made that back in season 14 on my Discord when I first started properly going to streaming again, and that was out of date almost instantly, and it was a lot of work to get it going, and I just didn't have the time to, or I didn't have the want to do it, the drive to do it, because I was just like, this is such a lot of effort and it's changing all the time. And I just didn't really want to do that. And I think that my games could do a lot more to support the content creators. You know, historically they had the packs that you could buy, that you could put the content creators like number into, and they would get some reward from that. That's been gone for a very long time. Realistically, the only thing you get as a content creator now is you get the battle pass at the start of the season if you're an active content creator, and you can do drops. That's pretty much it, right? You get stuff for giveaways as well, but that's kind of it. There's not really any real incentive to want to be a content creator. You don't get any special access. I mean, you can argue you get special access to like the preview events. That's always useful, but you don't really need that, and it doesn't really give you much from it. So I think that they could definitely do more to support that and get some more people wanting to do it. But I think the state the game is in now and how people access information, I think, is very different. So the second part of your question, I think, from myself as a house lead and sort of more from that competitive side, where what I get the information from is I'm on a lot of different Discords. I have a lot of different people that will send me messages, and I look at a lot of the other Discords as well, especially booming ones as well. Like some of the times, a lot of the best information we've had on units and when they've changed is from the booming side, because they have a lot of people that will test units in great detail. And yeah, Kitowiec, we use some of yours sometimes as well. You do a lot of good work there as well, but the booming guys normally come out first, because they historically they used to get the changes before us, so we would find out about unit changes a week or two earlier because they would already have it. We'd ask them what was good. From a tournament side, I would be talking to some of their top tournament like captains, being like, this change is coming up soon, you've already got it, tell me more about it. Like, what is good about it? Is it useful to play? Is it anything we should worth taking note on? Probably not. From a house lead point of view, and from like sort of raid lead and stuff for my guys in there, it's just the different networks I have in the game, basically, I built up through playing this game. All the different top players that I know I can trust that will learn a lot of these units, or they have contacts themselves. It's just a big network of contacts, basically. That's the best way I've got to know what's good. And then it's just people just go in house chat and just say, okay, this has come out, how do I do this? What's good about this? And either I'll respond or someone else might respond to something else. Like, actually, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. And it's just a collaborative effort from everyone that's just learning it at the same time. And that's how I get that information normally myself, and how I share that with other people.
Okay, so maybe starting with how the new player sees the game when he starts the game. I think that the new tutorials are much more useful, and
100%.
like the whole starting experience, when you don't have to choose your units, you don't have to choose your class in the beginning, because it's like how you are supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, you just start off with Glaive now, because I made a new account this season as well. You just
you start with the Glaive, you get the Mace Sergeants, you get like few basic units which are actually good. Like the Mace Sergeants are very good unit when you complete the mastery, and the tutorials are not ride on the horse and hit targets is if you deal more damage when you hit them in the back, or things like, or you have to break the block to damage them, but you can flank them to avoid the block. Like that's the actual important information for new players. I personally didn't complete these tutorials because they give experience. I want to have a head start in the next season. But yeah,
I did the same.
min-maxing the runes. But I mean, it's much better. But it's still like the problem for the new player is that like you have some currency, you have a lot of like unit medals. You can level up units, but which should you choose? And I don't think there is any way how you could like add it to the game, this knowledge. I don't think it's even possible. Okay, Temple, I see you.
One thing I would add on to that, because I have leveled up a couple of new accounts this season because I've been messing around with some stuff. It's a lot better guidance now. It does give you guidance to level up melee units, so it gets you to unlock palace guards, it gets you to unlock imp pikes, it gets you to unlock halberd sergeants, and it gets you to unlock imp shields and reapers. That's what the game guides you into. I don't think it's all of those actually. I think it might just be palace guards and imp pikes and halberd sergeants. But I took imp shields because obviously they're strong. But it guides you for melees. That's, I think, is the biggest thing for me. Is it is telling you to complete this challenge, you need to play a melee unit. Like you need to unlock this melee unit. You don't have to, obviously. It's like a side quest, really, more than anything. But it's guiding you to those units, which is better than that because I see it all the time. You go onto the official Discord and people go, "Oh yeah, you should unlock green jabs. They're the best. Yeah, they're the best units to take. Yeah." Or I know I had a conversation with Drayton early on where he was talking about his new house on E2 and they were suggesting you to get Javcav as a first unit, which again, not a bad unit, but would I advise new players to be rushing that? Probably not. So I think that the game is that this season, if you make an account this season, you are in the best start you've ever had as a new player. You've got, like you said, the Mace Sergeants. The quests are a hell of a lot more melee guided, which makes it so much better. You have got this new Drill Master reward as well, which I don't know if you've seen that on the new account. So that gives you a lot of unit medals, a lot of honor medals, and a lot of XP and all that kind of side of things. And you can pay for a better version, which is like a battle pass. So you can pay for a better version of, I think it's like 900 sovs, which just doubles the rewards basically. But that helps you unlock stuff so quickly. I leveled up an account to level 100 and I have triple melees. I've got imp shields, imp pikes, and palace guards fully leveled out. I've just unlocked berserkers as well because I thought, screw it, that's going to be good to just mess around with some low level account and stuff. Like, it's so good now and you have a lot more guidance for it. Yes, granted, I have the knowledge as well to come on the side of that, so I can sort of force where I'm going, but new players now have so much better guidance just to start off the game. But then it's where do you go from that? There's no guidance for the seasonal challenges, which is one of the biggest parts of the game, is those seasonal units. And that's where I think the new players struggle. But that's also a difficult one because the meta changes every season.
Yeah, I think that also like how you handle the fact that you like the new player won't know what is good right now, right? So, and I don't think there is a way to like add it into the game unless they would do something like get the statistic of this unit is most used without any context, right? I think that could be somehow helpful, but I think the much better way would be if, let's say, community managers, there should be a place on the Discord, because like you have to join the official Discord to get any news. There is no news in game, which they should also add, by the way. But I think that on the official Discord, there should be moderated like channel where they have up-to-date list of community picks. What is good right now? Maybe some votes. What is good in this week? And then they should link to this from the game. There is a list which is updated by the
That's such a good idea.
or something like that.
Yeah,
That's
And
really
I
good
think
idea.
that would be cheap, right? And like easy to do.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add in there. So, because I don't know if you've had much experience on the booming side, Kitowiec, but playing over there. So obviously I entered a tournament over there before. They had a feature for that. So with their CBL, they had a feature in the game where you could, I think it was F7 you would press, and it would load up a web page on top of the game that would have all the CBL details. You could sign to it there. Like they had that additional function there. They also have all of the patch notes and everything in the game, in the menu system.
Yes, I know.
Like when you press O and go into the system, they have it all in there when you load in. So why can't my games do something similar? The feature's obviously already there in the game. Have more stuff, have more news built into the game. Any of their updates they put on the official Discord, because there are, let's say, to put it a nice way, there are some vets that are banned there from previous seasons with like clown emoji spams and things like that. They don't see those updates. There's no other way they can really get them apart from looking on the website, which is not the easiest for people to go to sometimes. Have it built into the game. Have the
Yeah, I
website
think that
built into the game.
like I'm not sure why they don't have patch notes in the game if they are like I guess it's some kind of I don't know some backend issue. But if you start the game, you have these rolling banners of actual things, which actually when you click them, they open web browser, let's say in Steam overlay or something like that, and you can see that. So if there is a day after the maintenance and there are patch notes, why there is no link to the patch notes in there? You could just click it and go to the web page.
And just jumping on what you said as well, I think having that list of community picks of what is currently strong is such a good idea as well. And again, could be added to an in-game web page, but even just have it on their Discord. They could even just ask the content creators each week, just say what is strong right now. And yeah, there are some content creators in there that play more for fun than for the competitive level, but they know who they can ask for top picks on stuff. There's a lot of people in there that play the tournaments. Like, you've got Amias in there as a content creator, you've got GhostX in there as well, myself. There's yourself that knows a lot of the meta as well. There's a lot of other players that know what is strong in the meta and can guide these new players. I asked before because I was like, hey, can we get a feature where on the official Discord you can have members of the community that are known to have good knowledge that can have like an extra marker next to their name, so that we stop having people going, yeah, you should play green jabs, they're the best, and you can have people having actual conversations and say, look, a strong unit right now, imp shields. That's what I had a conversation today. I was like, imp shields are very strong right now for a new player, because someone said, what class and what unit should I play first? And I said, realistically, the best setup for a new player is Nodachi and imp shields. Because firstly, you'll kill a lot more, you get all your challenges done with Nodachi. Secondly, the imp shields will be a very good frontline and will carry you into the later game if you want to go to that more competitive side. And it teaches you how to play as a frontline melee player, and commit with your hero, which is what the top level of this game is about. And so that is and someone goes, oh no, you should play glaive with imp muskets because you'll kill everything. And I'm like, yeah, you can do that. If you want to play and have some fun in sieges, sure, anything can work. But for a new player, would I be recommending them range? No. Because it just doesn't have that transfer into the sort of the later stages of the game.
Yeah, I think the problem is that I remember when I unlocked the longbows first time and thought that they are amazing because they could kill everything on the walls from front of the walls. But I mean, I was playing against bots, and in normal matches there is nothing on these walls to kill. So like this part of starting experience is an issue that you are not playing against players. You don't know that what works for you, it doesn't actually work because you are not playing against players.
Yeah, and I touched on it in the stream with Jolt as well, which is it's a very different experience from that new start of the game till afterwards.
So Temple, you did a stream with Jolt where you try to get him accelerating through the learning curve as quickly as you possibly could. I watched it, and one of the things I found was that the actual amount of information that you need to learn as a new player is not something you can do in an hour or 2 hours.
100%.
It is a realistic difference between someone with 1,000 hours experience in this game and someone with 1 hour.
And it was difficult trying to not dumb it down, because that's not the right phrase, but trying to cut it down to as little as possible, because there was a hell of a lot more I could have talked about in there, but I was trying to cover a lot of the questions that I know get asked by new players a lot. What unit should I unlock? What weapon should I play? What seasonal unit should I unlock? Those were 3 of the biggest things for me. But trying to cover that, even an hour trying to cover that, is not the easiest thing.
So there's a number of things that are very obvious when it comes to playing the game, which they're now doing better, which is actually like guiding you through the units from what you're saying. But are there any hidden things that are not obvious, that currently are not put in the guides, that explain what a veteran would be doing or veteran would be utilizing versus what new players do? And for this, I'm almost specifically looking at crafting and the bits you do outside of just playing a siege, as well as like a couple of mechanics within a siege. And we'll talk about respawning and the way players use artillery and all those kind of things. But Super, do you think there's anything that's kind of like hidden and not very obvious that players, particularly new players, are not given a chance to even learn about until arguably it's too late?
I feel like from the questions which are get asked sometimes, I feel like people do not realize that you don't have to do anything in the open world. Like in the current state of the game, I feel like they kinda forgot about open world and like crafting unit kits, things like that. Were like, why? Why would you do that? I mean, as if you just stay in the city and only do sieges, you don't have to do that. Like that, there
Apart
is
from
no
the
point.
10 rebels that you do outside for the peacemaking, that thing.
Yeah,
That's the
but
only thing I would say is like super important. But even then, you can miss that.
yeah,
It's
for
not
example,
necessarily-
I'm not doing it at all. Like because I just don't need to do it. I guess new player needs these stones, so he should do that. And there is no like if you don't scroll through the weekly quest, you won't know that you have to kill 10 to get this reward.
I'd say
right?
that's the only guidance, right? Because even you
Yeah.
talk about crafting, the only guidance to go and do crafting is that one challenge a week, which is craft an item. Like the weekly
Yeah, I
challenges
mean,
are the only guidance
there
you really have.
used
for
to
this
be there used to be like dailies for the go kill bandits, go gather some resources and do the duel.
Mm.
And I mean I can live without resources and bandits. And for example, I really dislike they got rid of dueling thing because like personally I feel like when they remove that my like 1v1ing skills against players just went down because you used to have like constant people were fighting all the time.
Yeah,
And,
anytime you're in a city, you just see like 5 or 6
yeah,
duels at least.
and
happening at the same time.
it was even it even looks better when you are in city and they have people fighting because everything feels alive, right? And right now it's just nobody cares and it's harder to practice and it's kinda as a new player you also should know how to fight other players.
Yeah, I think honestly that's a quest they should bring back is that duel quest because it is genuinely healthy for the game. I think people probably complain because a lot of time people would just refuse the duel. But I never had any issues finding duels. I would duel people all the time. If they requested me and I was just in a loading screen, I would just duel them. Sometimes I wouldn't fight and I'd let them kill me because I was doing something else, but I would at least accept it and go for it because I knew they had a chance for it.
Yeah, that was the way. But I kind of forgot which question I was responding to, so you can remind me.
Is there hidden information that realistically the guides or the tutorials do not provide enough information on at the moment?
There is a lot of like controls you have in the game. Like if you are dead and you spectate another player and you press C, your unit will move to him, or you can send unit to supply point while you are dead. Right, like there is no way you would know about that, and I know that there are people like level 2000 which don't know about that. But how if you don't press accidentally the button, you won't know, right? And it's very important because it can save your unit after you die.
Yeah, especially because the retreating system is on some maps is just completely garbage.
Yeah, I think that you should be able to make a waypoint while you are dead. Go there for the unit.
Or they just need to change how the units retreat because there's a lot of maps where you always attack from this one position because that's how you attack that map. It's the meta for it. But when you retreat there, your units run forwards onto the point rather than back the way you came from. Little things like that. But one other thing, because I know you were talking about controls while dead, one that people may not be aware of is once you've retreated your unit, if you're spamming V, your unit will still attack whilst it's retreating, which a lot of people don't realize either. So if you hold down B, they start retreating, then you spam V loads of times, they will actually attack as well. But they'll still retreat at the end of the cooldown that they normally would. Little things like that, like you said, people won't find that out unless you join a house or you build up a network of people in here. And that's why I still keep saying every time the best thing to do as a new player is join a house. It can be a crappy new player house, it's fine. You'll still learn more from that than you would if you're by yourself. Then once you get the knowledge, you can maybe leave and join a new house, or you'll make other friends. You might then make a house with some of the people you met there, but you will progress through the game a lot more easily if you have that community around you.
Bet that spamming V while retreating a unit was done completely by accident as well, because those keys are right next to each other on the keyboard, and you wouldn't intrinsically think that, oh, okay, I've retreated my unit, hands off the keyboard, AFK now. But someone would have then noticed, oh my god, my unit's killing things. And if we talk about things that have accidentally been discovered, you can almost be certain the bombard flick was accidentally discovered.
Yeah, I can't remember how that came about, but I've sort of known about it for a while because you kind of get that impression a lot, especially like when you're playing Territory Wars. If you're trying to jump on a grape shot and fire it straight away. Sometimes it does fire sideways. And I don't think me personally had ever put 2 and 2 together and thought you can flick siege sideways, because people may not be aware, it's not just bombards. Most siege you can fire completely random directions. You can fire a siege ballista backwards.
Don't do quatchas though; it doesn't work.
Yeah, how much don't, because
I've tried that one.
Yeah, because they fire in like a continuous motion. As soon as you get off, it like, yeah, it messes with it up. But like grape shots, ballistas, like even siege ballistas, like I said, you can fire completely backwards. Like you can flick a lot of them. And I'd never put 2 and 2 together because I'd always just jumped on a grape shot, and sometimes you fire it and you think, actually looking back at that was sideways, but I didn't think about it at the time because they were so close to it. But yeah, it works. And then I think it was just one player showed me at the one time. I think I can't remember where it came from. It may have come from Booming side, it may have come from our side. I can't remember where it came from. But then that exploded so fast, and everyone knew about it. And it was a big issue in the last CBL that we had on my game side. That became an issue there, where they then ended up banning it. Banning the use of it because people were abusing it. And yeah, it's fun in sieges and you can get some snipes with it. But yeah, it is detrimental to the gameplay.
No, I think that's it would be nice to point out. That's why you need like the having house. You even have some more people, and you have more people around you. Someone will hear about something and will tell you, right? Because like personally, I often get messages. Just Discord message. Oh, did you know that something? Or did you? What happens if I do X? And if I don't know that, oh, maybe that's worth checking, right?
And again, it's a network you built up from playing, which I imagine a lot of it came from being in houses with these people. But obviously, with yourself, you're a content creator, it's a bit different. You build a network that way. But for a lot of people, just being in houses together, like I still have contacts from houses I was back in season 1 that still talk to me about stuff every now and then. And just say, oh, hey, did you see this thing? And I'm just like, oh, no, that's pretty cool. Or I'm like, oh, yeah, I did see that, but actually it's slightly different. It's this instead, or that you can do this as well. And like just having that network of people. And again, you'll get that so much better from being in houses.
There's a load of hidden mechanics in this game that you will see a veteran do, and as a new player, you might be like, what the hell happened?
Animation cancels.
Animation cancelled. I got shown one the other day about with Pike, where you can spam place an artillery piece, and it completely cancels your animation, cleaner than a sprint jump.
Yeah, I saw that like months ago.
Yeah,
but it's something you're never really going to do in practice, but it's just really interesting to see.
It's interesting to see. We can talk about Dual Blade and some of the hidden mechanics that Dual Blade community have together, where there are bugs in that game for their gameplay that, if the developers properly knew about, you'd want them to fix. There are some in there that are really game breaking, and they keep the community keeps it secret.
It's the mall animation cancel as well was a big one with the whole dash and cancel it, and yeah, you can get shorter attacks on there. There's a lot of animation cancels, but that to me is what makes this game so exciting. It's these in-depth things that players can find out that can elevate your gameplay to a whole other level that you may not have thought about before. Another simple one for me that a lot of people don't think about: getting back on your horse and dismounting again mid-fight. You don't really see a lot of people doing it, even at a top level. A lot of players don't do it, but it makes such a big difference. Especially like for me personally as a longsword, I use it quite a lot, because I'm normally alive for quite a long time. And if I can suddenly get on my horse and then jump off again and stun them again, that buys me a lot more time again. And especially with these classes that have a strong dismount, Poleaxe is very good at it. Maul is good at it as well. Short sword is good because you have that stun or that CC when you jump off your horse. And a lot of players don't think about it. And little things like that are things that you won't realize. Or, just doing it to stop a cav charge. Cav charging towards you, jump on your horse, jump off to stun it. A lot of players won't think that. They'll try and use an ability to stun it instead. And it's little things like that you may not learn unless you're in a house.
What are your favorite hidden interactions?
Favorite hidden interactions?
Like ones that you wouldn't expect or are just part of the game because of the way it's kind of modularly coded together. Like I'll say one. I'll say two. I found out one where I dismounted onto a dual blade, and he got knocked over, took no damage. I suddenly got choke ulted and fell onto the ground. The dual blade stands back up and then choke ults me again. And I essentially got double dual blade ulted because he cancelled his animation. Or the animation got cancelled. And another one is that muskets can throw bombs, but if you're interrupted or dazed as you throw, your cooldown is immediately reset, and you can throw twice.
And you don't do damage.
I think my favorite interaction I've ever had in this game is a bug that I haven't seen happen for a long time now, but it did happen last season in Territory Wars, which is when you can get stuck to the front of someone, especially a Poleaxe. when the ult bugs out, and then they're just running around, and you're just stuck. You can't do anything. Like you can be running on your screen, but you're not moving it. You're stuck to the front of them, and they're just running around, and you're attached to the front of them, just running across the map, and you're just going, yeah, like what the hell is this?
Like the biggest like kind of this kind of bug what happened. I think I have it at the start of my Iron Reapers guide, where I was choked and I ran away. I went to the supply point. I changed units, and after I changed my horse, it teleported me back to where I was choked.
Yes,
It was like minute after. It's like what the hell? And it was working fine. I could dismount, attack everyone. But yeah, that was the big one.
Some of the most fun ones are when you're playing like with NA as well, because a lot of the time, because of the ping difference, they can ult you and you will teleport. Like I had it, or one of the best ones was back when maul grab was used so much more, and one would grab you, another would grab you at the same time, or no, sorry, not with mauls, a maul and a poleaxe. So you would have a poleaxe ult you as a maul grabbed you, so you get taken out with the maul grab, so you're stuck to the poleaxe, but then the maul throws you, so when the poleaxe ult ends, you teleport to where the maul threw you. That for me was one of the most funny moments, because you're just like, I've been grabbed, oh no, I'm choked, oh god, I'm on the other side of the map, where am I don't know what was happening.
There was an amazing interaction that Gurk had, I think, in a territory war, where he'd gone on top of a wall and mounted onto his horse as a poleaxe tried to ult him. He then ran around for a couple of minutes. As soon as he got off his horse, he then teleported back to the top of the wall. And there's no one around him, but he's now just being hit by a poleaxe. And the poleaxe isn't there either, but he's taking damage and he's just lying on the ground. So there's a load of little interactions like that, but I wasn't really you called them bugs, which is fair enough. I was talking about more interactions that players have learned and picked up as going, this is the best way of doing it.
Sliding on the ladders.
Sliding on the ladders is a great one.
And jumping from the walls on the horse. I think they nerfed the you cannot roll into mount up while you're falling anymore.
Yeah, they changed that a few seasons ago. Yeah. One thing that you can still do sometimes that works is if you are spamming dismount as you fall, sometimes you'll dismount as you hit the bottom and your horse won't take damage. It doesn't work all the time, but it does work sometimes.
Particularly good on spear. That one it tended to work best on.
Yeah, because I had it a lot just playing even longsword, maul, short sword with all the heavy, and you could get away with quite a lot. I'd say one of the biggest interactions, more looking at unit wise here, is flames and where you aim with them, right? Because a lot of people just insta-fire in front, but you see from a few of the guides especially, if you aim at a wall behind and you aim higher, the flames shoot further, and a lot of players won't know that. So little things like that on certain ways you can aim things, certain ways you can target stuff. One example I have as well is Falcos, with the way you aim them. So, for example, you can aim, like, I'm just talking from a tournament experience here, like, you can find spots on a map where you'll aim at a random tower, but because of the way you've aimed, their arc will then hit, like, the point where you're trying to hit over a wall. You know, there's little things like that, which the only way you can find that out is if someone's gone around the map and tested a lot, and a lot of that stuff we'd find out from Booming, because they would test the hell out of every map with every condition you had, because because they can earn a lot of money from playing their tournaments, they put a lot more minute focus and detail into their strats on there. And so there was a lot of spots, like Highling was an example for me. There was a spot with Falcos on the outside where you could aim at a certain corner of a tower in a very specific place, and the Falcos would shoot over the wall onto the point to where the enemy normally sets up. And it's just little things like that. The interactions of how you aim certain units just make such a big difference.
Yeah, for example, with archers, when you aim at the horizon, then you get the higher range. And it's also consistent, so you can, like you say, go in custom matches and test out some places to see.
With Shenji's as well, with their bombs.
Do you remember when Shenji's first came out and you could throw your grenades the entire length of the map?
And it's little things with the like you mentioned Shenji's, like on towers specifically. So there's certain spots where if you're just trying to throw within their range, they would end up hitting the tower. But if you aim it past their range, they'll throw over the top, but still hit at the edge of their range. There's little things like that. I think playing from a melee point of view, for me, one of the biggest interactions that I have, which not a lot of people know about, even as units in general, XV on your units. You can massively increase their damage output on a lot of melee units by XVing them. And what I mean by that, for those that don't know, is if you're holding down X, you can then position where your unit's going to go, or if you tap X, it'll go into its formation in front of you, and V is attack. So if you are XVing, you can cancel the attack animation on a lot of units. Reapers was the biggest example of that in the early stages of the game because they had very high base damage, and if you just XV, XV, XV as you're going through, you could do so much more damage with them. And one thing in the current meta, Imp Shields, the amount of times I see people just sitting there on cover commander with Imp Shields, just melee attacking away and not doing anything, and their Imp Shields aren't even covering them because they're behind them. X move them. Just tap X, they'll instantly form up around you. They'll walk through units to get to you as well. And it was one thing with Reapers historically, again, I go back to them, you could X move them through an entire setup, and they would just walk straight through the wall without like hitting anything. There was no body block there. You could X move through and then press attack or charge from the back and hit all their stuff inside. It's like with Imp Shields a lot now, I'll be having the fight. Let's say, for example, I'm fighting another Imp Shield, and they'll think, oh yeah, I easily win this because I'm a Maul and I can easily kill that longsword with his Imp Shields. I'll just X move behind his, press cover commander, now my Imp Shields have surrounded his from behind and are killing his Imp Shields. Little things like that can make such a big difference that people don't realize.
Is there anything you'd like to bring up?
Yes, I think it's worth bringing up the way the damage works in the game, because the people are always asking about what stats you should use, or even if you put doctrines on your unit, if I should go with damage or penetration or things like that.
I have that question daily in house chat, basically, and people go, what line should I do this? What doctrine should I put on this unit? Oh, I'm changing to this class. What's the best stats for it? And I know historically, for example, the biggest example was heavy armor. How many points do you put into armor before you can go something else? That was always one of the biggest questions. And people, I think it was always around, you wanted to get over, was it 1100? I think it used to be the base. It was like, you get over 1100, that's kind of where you want to be. That's a good level. Any more than that, you can still go higher, but it won't give you, it has diminishing returns after that, basically. But now this season, I don't know if it's changed, but it feels like you can go heavier into the armor side and it feels better. So for example, I've got the epic schematic and I've got like 1300 defenses on all of my stats now for longsword.
I mean, from what I know, there is actually no diminishing returns on armor. It just gets, it's like the other way around. The more you have, the stronger it gets. So the more you can go over 1000, it's better for you. So I think that's the common misconception about armor, because in other games there tend to be diminishing returns, so you are used to thought that you should get some armor and then you go for HP to get more effective HP and things like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it used to be everyone said 1100 was the max. I never listened to it anyway because I was too lazy to figure it out. I just put everything in either health or armor depending what I was playing and just messed around with the stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone used to say it was 1100. So it's interesting
because
to hear
that's basically that's the big video analogy did about the damage calculations, where you can see
for a bit?
Yeah, it's big. I don't really want to bring up the damage formula, but the way how it works is the more armor you have, the more damage reduction you get, and it's like the important thing is how much armor you have in comparison to penetration of enemies. And there is tends to be kinda set point at which maybe apart from firearms, which have very huge armor penetration, like most of the units don't have like 2000, for example. So if you go over 1000, and I think it's like a important point, like having to at least if something has 2000 penetration, you want to have 1000 armor, and then it just gets stronger and stronger very, very quickly, because suddenly because in such situation they deal 50% damage. So the more you get, the difference you actually see increases much faster, because suddenly because there is not much difference if you hit for 5000 and you reduce it to 4500, right? It's not much. But if you get hit by 500 and you reduce it to 4500, and this is massive difference. And that's why You want to get, if you can get high armor, you want to get as high as you can get, because it's just the you are operating low damage numbers, and even slight less difference is like makes you survive much longer.
So to provide a bit of context for the people listening that might not know about this, there's a content creator for booming side called Alan Apogee, and he has made a spreadsheet that you're able to put your personal stats into. And what it will recommend you do is remove all your attributes, so having base strength, base agility, armor, toughness, and then you put in what your weapon, the one you've rolled, and the armor you've rolled into the kind of spreadsheet equation setup he's done. And from there, it will give you almost an optimal setup. It will also, I don't know if it tells you what runes to take, but it might be adjusting based on what runes are available
The
as
runes
well.
are outdated right now.
Okay,
he
they're
wasn't
outdated.
updating it.
But the spreadsheet still counts, and where you've got all these new variables coming in from the different weapon sets, where some have increased penetration, increased base damage, increased defenses, you've got the ability to now like tweak to get, players love min-maxing. So I remember going through this with my musket, and it's saying I needed to get to about 51 points in strength and the rest into agility for me to deal the most penetration damage I was going to deal, as well as the most flat base damage. And that was if I wanted to deal damage. But realistically, there's other scenarios where I had to play full armor on my musket because my job was to survive. And my best survivability was to go into armor because I had really good health rolls already on my armor. So it's an amazing tool, and there's a lot of detail and there's a lot of numbers that have gone into this. And I think Super knows a bit more about actually how the calculations were done, particularly around penetration. And it is a very popular question because people love to min-max and people love to see large damage numbers come up, and also people love to survive when they're playing tanky characters as well.
Yeah. And I guess that's I think we could, I don't know, put in the description this formula for the damage, because it's it basically answers the question which people have all the time: which stats should which attributes should I put points into? And question the answer always is, it depends on your weapon. It's always the same. It's impossible to tell you, go full strength, right? If you don't have any penetration on your weapon, then you shouldn't do it. But if you have, then you could do it. So it depends, right? So
and it depends on what weapon you're playing as well, right? Because if you're playing longsword, for example, you don't really care about the damage stats anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You care more about the tankiness on there. And like, for example, I have an epic schematic longsword that's got like 350 slashing armor and slashing armor pen, but I don't use it because I have a blue schematic that has like plus 12 armor and plus 9 toughness. So it just makes me even tankier. So I just use that instead.
Yeah.
It very much does differ. But yeah, it is definitely helpful. It's one of the biggest questions that people do have is what stats do I run on this? So for me, for example, I didn't know about this thing you're talking about. It's the first I've heard of it. I've never seen that before in my life. I've just gone from what other players have told me. So
TBL winning temple shot hasn't heard.
Yeah, you see, you don't
I'm
have
just so
to win.
good, I didn't need it.
I would just I think that's kind of important, right? That because it's about min-maxing your stats, but realistically, they are not that important, right? You can win CBL without knowing about that, because it's more about how you use your units as a team. Because you can min-max everything, but if you feed your unit with bad engagement, you got caught, then it doesn't matter, right? So exactly. It's not the most important thing to get good in the game.
Is there anything else you want to talk about on that point? Because that, for me, really just ties us all round to what we said at the start. So, do you have any other points, Kitowiec?
I guess in this topic, not really.
Not really. Okay. So, one of the things that we had is that game sense is arguably more important. And the tutorials that we now have in the game for new players, where you say, come on, if you've got a shield wall in front of you, don't run into the shield wall, run around the back of it. Little things like that go an awfully long way to improving the overall quality that the new players will experience. But we also kind of agree that there's a number of things that we would change. And also, there's a couple of things we'd bring back that have been removed from the game that generally improve the feel and improve how much enjoyment we have. And the ones I got written down, which were really simple, which is almost having a feedback that we as the players can give on what is the flavor of the month. So what are the weekly units that everyone is bringing, and having a ability to track that on, say, the community Discord or a website where we fill in a form saying what units are you playing this week would be a really, really nice addition, and also cost nothing to do. And the other thing is having duels back and kind of acknowledging the role the open world has to play in the game, which is something that now very few players enjoy and get time out of and put time into. So there's a couple of changes that we did mention quite specifically we'd make to that. Is there anything else we'd change in relation to like how the game is currently enjoyed, the numbers behind it, interactions, as well as the meta itself?
I think that for the starting experience, when I think about it, there should be some more tutorials about not being alone, like being with the team. Something like, oh, there is this spike unit, put your shields in front of it. Like things like that. I think that would be very helpful. And as for the like hidden mechanics, just get rid of hidden mechanics, like hidden stats. Like we still don't know the block values of the units, right? And just display it, everything. And when there are changes to it, put in the patch notes. Because
because sometimes it's like increased.
You mentioned about how hard it is to make a guide, and it gets outdated 1 week ago. 1 week later. And it's not even that they said in patch notes, oh, now we changed this unit. It's even worse when they change the unit, but it's not in the patch note. It's just like it was with Reapers. At some point, they got CC immunity. It was there for like 1.5 years, and then it disappeared. And it wasn't in the patch notes. Like why?
Then part of that is that the localization. That my games historically had bad localization when they were translating text over. I think it's gotten a hell of a lot better now from what I've seen. But historically, there was very bad translation issues. I mean, you even look at the most recent one. They did the announcement on how the feast would work towards Conqueror City, and they announced it wrong.
Yeah,
was that down to a localization translation error? It could have just been a human mistake, which could have also been that. But mistakes like that don't help. And just going back to what you said about the block, right? There's lots of doctrines that like increase block by 40%. But what does that mean? Because we don't know what their original block is. It could be like 10, or it could be like 400. Like, who knows?
Yeah, and you have veterancy, which increases the crit value of the unit. But what does it mean?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is me coming almost from my personal background, where I love data. Give me data. Let me see how this is actually going. And one of the things that I wanted to draw comparisons between other games and how they do tutorials, how they do their advertising of their content creators, and how they get the game to progress in a positive direction. League of Legends is the best one, where they have an incredible amount of stats that's available to the point where they have companies that have started where they use the data that is available to produce tier lists, to produce the most optimal builds for units and things like that. I don't think Conqueror's Blade needs that level, but what it does need it needs to acknowledge that you have tiers of play within the game, and you have separation in how the game is experienced at these different tiers. And you'll have moments as a new player where you are a level 60, and then somehow you're surrounded by level 4000s, and they've all got gold units, and you've only got blue, and it's a very different experience. And there needs to be some acknowledgement that, yeah, this is you seeing what it's going to be like. You're not expected to do well here because you do not have the gear that is required in this case. I would absolutely love to see the data split into the demographics that this game currently has, which is new player, learning player, veteran player. And if you then start balancing the game around that, I think with that level of communication, you're going to get very few people having complaints, And the people that do are probably exploiting the system as it currently is. And that's where you want natural changes to happen. Because we can talk about like one tricks in League of Legends and relate it to one tricks in the weapons classes we have here, where you have communities that specifically go and say, "Oh, my champion is terrible. Please buff it." But if you spoke to everyone else outside of that community, say, "No, that character is very much overpowered. Please don't buff it. Why is this getting buffed?" As well as changes in the nerfing. This is where League of Legends, I think, does it quite poorly, from certainly what I'm seeing, which is where they're so afraid that making a small change will tip champions so far off the scale that you end up with an incredibly stale meta for a really long time. And where Conqueror's Blade has such a massive advantage is because it's introducing this mastery, and it's kind of accepting the fact that we want to change the game really quickly now. Because last season, the meta stayed the same as soon as Yanya Dao came out. Arguably, as soon as Crescent Monks came out, they were the meta, and they stayed that way for nearly 3 months. Currently, the meta changes every month with each new mastery unit that comes out, or mastery rotation. So having that speed of adaptation is really, really cool. But there needs to be some number guidance that the community understands for then these decisions to be made. And that is what I would absolutely love, because you can dive into those stats as much as you want. And people that are incredibly talented with the maths, like Alan, who made that spreadsheet that said, I have because I think from memory, the way he worked out how the penetration worked was he was incrementally changing his stats on weapons to see the difference it made. And then he'd record hundreds of damage notes and say, right, this ability did 1,200 to 1,400 on an auto attack because it was piercing damage. And then he doubled his amount of piercing damage and it dealt 1,800 now. Like he went into that level of detail with a whole team of people, and that level of detail should not have been needed because that data exists. That those numbers do exist, they're just hidden. Just like the block values are currently hidden because they have to be tweaked by the developers to make changes, and the veterancy line has to change. So I think the data's there. Just please give it to us. Please let us see. What are we going to do with it?
It's just the running theme from this whole thing. Be more open. Involve the community more is one. Be more open and more just transparent with things, basically. Because what's the downside from them telling us the block values? Like, what do they lose from that? Just a bit of extra coding to put an extra number in the game. That's it.
No, that's like because it's already there, right? Like just display it somewhere.
The fundamentals of this game are very, very good. They've done a lot of hard work early. They are now failing to produce the final product it could be. And they're making huge changes that not many people are asking for, instead of fixing little things that would incrementally make the game so much better. It's already so much better than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We're just going through the 3rd anniversary, right? So the game has come on such a long way. Was it fourth anniversary? 4 years old.
It's going to be 4 years because I checked out one of my achievements the other day and it was June 2019 was my first achievement in this game.
So yeah, 4 years. So yeah. The game has moved on a lot, but it also hasn't. Communicate with us. Ask us what we want, and I'll tell you what. The game already has most of it.
I would say the problem with that is when they ask that, they have all these new players going, "We want buffs to this unit. We want buffs to that unit." That's completely irrelevant.
And this is where I ask: do we need a focus group? Do we need an actual focus group of people that are going to give good feedback and have proven to give good feedback?
Mm-hmm.
Or even just, like you said, just look at the levels at least. That would be good enough. I mean, because it also shouldn't be that the game is balanced only around the competitive side, because they should be also balanced against the people who just want to have fun, right? But I guess if you have like level 2000, he should have some kind of idea what he likes and what he dislikes, and yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, we all know people that have thousands of experience in this game, and we would say they make questionable decisions as well.
Not going to call anyone out.
No, won't call. But
Draden's the worst one. What?
I mean, I swap weapons every 2 fights because I get bored playing the same thing every time. I think on that note, that is a great place to end. One of the things I really, really want to draw attention to is our next episode, which is with community managers. So if you're listening to this and you have specific questions for Super, please put them in the chat. We'll make sure he reads them, and also then we can deal with them ourselves. But we really need to get as many good questions for the community managers that we think that they can answer within realism, that we can then have a really nice discussion with them to get what the community wants in a very kind of direct way. A lot of this is driven by myself and Temple's opinions as well as our guests, but that does come from trickling down with talking, as Temple said, with an entire network of people of different levels, of different experiences and backgrounds to try and drive this game in a good direction. We want it to succeed. We want it to do well, and yeah, work with us. Chuck any comments or any descriptions you think are valid in the comment section, and we'll address them. But I just want to thank Super for giving us this time. It is a Saturday afternoon, and I'm sure the weather's lovely. Where can people find you on social media, and where are your guides that are increasing in popularity for people that don't know about them?
I'm mostly on the YouTube, so SuperKitowiec. I guess there will be some kind of link, and I have
we'll
also
put your
my
links below.
Discord. Yeah, and also have my Discord where I put my thoughts and announcements, and you can ask me questions. You can also just message me on Discord. I tend to answer people's questions all the time. So yeah.
Thank
I
you
guess
very
that's
much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Boom. I don't know if you noticed,
Boom.
my chair has been slowly going down.
Yeah. I thought